some places feel abandoned long before a single person ever thinks to leave them. They sit in the quiet corners of the world, like forgotten thoughts, holding stillness the way a closed hand holds secrets. Tonight, I want you to imagine one of those places, a stretch of land so remote that even the wind seems to question why it bothers to pass through. This is where our story begins. A field with no name, a field with no history, a field where no one walked until someone did, and what they found there should have never existed. Picture it. A pale horizon shivering under the early morning sun, mist clinging to weeds that grew too tall, as if refusing to let anything, light, sound, truth, settle there. The ground was uneven, riddled with dips and quiet pockets of shadow. A place that feels wrong before you even know why. For years, the locals claimed the land was cursed. Not dramatically, not loudly, just one of those soft, stubborn beliefs passed between generations. The kind spoken in lowered voices while dishes were washed or lights were turned off. Leave that field alone. There's nothing there worth finding. Even the animals know better. But curiosity always has a way of tugging at the wrong threads, and on a September morning that started like any other, a man named Jared Hemsley decided to take a shortcut across the land. He was a delivery driver, known to cut corners, beat the clock, and shave a minute wherever he could. He stepped into the field because it seemed empty, safe, absolutely uneventful. But the field had been waiting. Jared would later say that the first thing he noticed was the silence, not the gentle kind. This was a heavy, padded kind of silence, something that felt placed over the land deliberately, like a velvet lid pressed onto a box to keep whatever was inside from escaping. Then came the smell. Not rot, not death. Something stranger, something metallic, as if the air itself had bled. He almost turned back. Almost. But he took one more step, and that was enough. His foot landed on something that shouldn't have been there. Not soil, not plant. Something with a faint give. Something that pushed back for a moment before sinking. Jared froze, the mist spiraling around his ankles as if urging him to leave. But dread has a curious magnetism, doesn't it? The kind that pulls you forward even when every instinct begs you to turn away. He knelt down, pushed aside the grass, and found the body. A man, or what was left of one, lying beneath the overgrowth, as if the earth had tried and failed to swallow him whole. His skin was pale enough to blend with the morning fog. His eyes were open, staring upward with an expression that didn't look surprised, but resigned. Almost as if he had known exactly how he would be found. Jared staggered back so fast he nearly fell, scrambling to pull out his phone. But the device refused to load a single bar of signal. The field, as always, allowed nothing in and nothing out. So he ran. And as he ran, he swore he felt something watching him from behind. When authorities finally arrived, after Jared drove half a mile just to get reception, the field seemed to return to its lifeless, indifferent state. The mist had thinned. The metallic scent had weakened. The silence had settled back into the soil like a creature sinking into its den. But the body remained. And with it, a mystery that would drag investigators toward a truth so strange and so unsettling that some officers quit the case before even filing their first report. The man had no ID, no wallet, no phone, no labels on his clothing, no fingerprints. Not because they were removed, but because he didn't have any to begin with. Every investigator who saw that first anomaly felt something quiet and cold drift beneath their ribs. A human being without fingerprints? That alone was bizarre. But this wasn't abrasion, this wasn't injury, this was clean, perfect, as if they had never existed in the first place, and there was something else, something carved into the man's wrist. Not a tattoo, not a brand. Something that looked like it had been pressed beneath the skin rather than cut into it, leaving a strange, shallow marking that vaguely resembled a symbol. But here's the part no one could explain. The symbol wasn't made of a single shape. It shifted depending on the angle of light. Investigators said it looked like a circle at first, then a cross, then something twisting, branching, curling inward, as if the mark itself didn't want to be understood. For the next hour, officers scoured the area, expecting tools, footprints, dragged soil, anything to suggest how the man ended up there. But the field held no clues, no impressions, no signs of struggle, not even broken grass around the body. It was as though someone had grown him directly from the earth. Stranger still, the man had no calluses, no marks of labor, no scars. His body was clean, almost artificially so, like someone who had lived a life with no roughness, no accidents, no history. Yet his teeth told a different story. They were worn, slightly chipped in patterns consistent with someone who'd lived hard, eaten poorly, maybe even clenched through years of stress. Two different versions of a life in one body. Night devoured the town faster than usual, as if the sun had slipped beneath the horizon in fear. The sheriff's office bustled with frantic motion, but beneath all the shouting, all the clipped orders, all the running boots, there was something else. A quiet that didn't belong. A quiet that felt arranged, like something was listening. Detective Mara Vinton stood in the morgue doorway with Sheriff Calder, both staring at the message on the examination table. It shimmered faintly under the sterile lights, forming words that felt less written and more placed. "You look too soon." Calder wiped a hand over his face. "We need to lock this town down." "Lock it down against what?" Mara asked. "We don't know what we're dealing with." Calder hesitated, and the hesitation was an answer in itself. Officers rushed into the room, trying to stabilize the scene, but nothing in the morgue felt stable. The drawers seemed colder. The stainless steel surfaces reflected light too sharply. The air had a thin metallic taste, like an electrical storm building beneath the skin. Dr. Havel entered last. She looked broken. Not scared, fear was too small a word. She looked fragmented, as if her mind was trying to fit something into the world that simply didn't belong in it. "He didn't walk out," she said quietly, voice hollow. "He didn't sit up. He didn't break restraints. I checked the cameras." "And?" Mara asked. "There's no footage of him leaving," Havel whispered, "but he's not in the room. It's like he was replaced with the absence of himself." No one spoke. "What does that even mean?" Calder asked. "It means," Havel continued, "someone erased him from the timeline of the room without erasing the room." The officers exchanged glances, none of them willing to be the first to say what they were thinking. That wasn't possible. Which meant something impossible had happened. Before anyone could respond, a deputy burst through the hallway doors, panting. "Sheriff, you need to see this." Calder and Mara followed him to the front lobby. A cluster of officers had gathered at the windows, their faces pressed close to the glass. The deputy pointed toward the street. A woman stood across the road. Still, perfectly still, arms at her sides, hair unmoving despite the breeze. Her face wasn't visible in the shadows, but her posture Mara froze. Lyra, the woman from the field, from the envelope, from the warning. How did she get here? Mara whispered. Calder frowned. Who is that? Mara didn't answer. She stepped closer to the window, pulse racing, every instinct in her screamed to step back. Something was wrong with Lyra's silhouette. The streetlight flickered above her, buzzed, went out. And in that brief darkness, Lyra was suddenly closer. 5 feet closer, too fast, too silent, too exact. The light flickered on. Now she stood at the edge of the curb, her face visible, and Mara's breath stilled. Lyra's eyes. They weren't reflecting the light, they were producing it. A faint glow beneath the irises, soft, foreign, malformed. What do you want? Mara whispered through the glass, though she knew the woman couldn't hear. But Lyra's head tilted, slowly, deliberately, as if she had heard, as if sound was merely an option, not a requirement. Then she raised a hand, not waving, pointing. Down the street, towards something approaching, something shambling, something pale. A figure stepped into the faint arc of streetlight, bare feet, loose hospital gown, skin gray, eyes hollow. His posture was wrong, too heavy in the neck, head tilting like a marionette managed by an unskilled puppeteer. Mara's heart stopped. It was him, the man from the morgue. He walked with jerky, uneven movements as though each step was rehearsed, not remembered. The tear from his eye streaked down his cheek, glowing faintly. He shouldn't be alive. He shouldn't be walking. He shouldn't be anything at all. Officers reached for their weapons. Calder shouted, "Hold! Nobody fires!" But the morgue man didn't approach the station. He walked past it, straight past, heading toward the woods on the edge of town, drawn by something unseen. Like something was calling him back, like he had somewhere to be, somewhere he belonged. Lyra lowered her hand, turned, and followed him. Not looking at the officers, not acknowledging Mara, not exhibiting anything human enough to call a choice. Just following, as if she too were being summoned. The light flickered again. Both figures vanished into the tree line, not fast, not instantly. They just melted into the dark in a way that didn't match the physics of the world. Calder turned to Mara. "You said Lyra gave you a picture of that man before we even found him." "Yes." "And now she's walking with him." "Yes." "Do you have any idea what that means?" Mara looked at the empty tree line. The silence, the strange, shimmering tear, the shifting body, the impossible movement, the voices in the field. "It means," Mara whispered, "they're not alone." She turned to the sheriff, eyes sharp and cold. "And they're not human." The woods swallowed Lyra and the morgue man without a sound, like a throat closing around a secret. Officers spilled out of the station with flashlights and rifles, but the tree line just loomed. Thick, the cemetery didn't just fall silent. It listened. Every tree beyond the gate leaned as though bowing. Every creature Lyra had summoned knelt so deeply their faces brushed the grass, and from the fissure inside the rib cage, something enormous pushed upward. Not quickly, not violently, the way a mountain might rise if it decided to breathe. Mara tore at the tendril wrapped around her wrist, but it held tight. It stood cold and impossibly smooth. Calder tried again to pry her free, but the material might as well have been forged from the center of a star. Mara "Mara, look at me," he shouted. "What's coming up from there?" She couldn't answer, because she didn't know if the thing rising was a creature or a message. The fissure widened with a grinding groan that vibrated through the bones of everyone present. Light poured upward like liquefied frost. The officers shielding behind the headstones couldn't help peeking over, drawn to it the way people are drawn to cliffs despite the drop. And then a shape emerged, tall, long-limbed. More geometry than biology, its arms weren't arms. They were symmetrical blades of articulated bone-like material, flowing into one another like a folding cathedral. Its torso was a chamber of interlocking plates, each shifting as though it were exhaling light. No face, no eyes. Just a smooth surface where a head should be, reflecting the moon like glass pulled from deep, dark water. Rourke's voice cracked. "That's not alive," Calder whispered. "Then why is it looking at us?" Because the faceless head turned slowly, precisely until it faced Mara. Even without eyes, she felt its stare like ice sinking into her organs. "Mara, back up," Calder breathed. "If that thing moves at you..." She couldn't. The tendril held her like a tether. The creature's surface shimmered. Not white light, not silver. A glow the color of memory. Old, buried, unearthed. The glow traced down the plates of its body and reached the ribcage surrounding the fissure. Every piece resonated in perfect synchrony. Lyra, collapsing beside Mara, whispered with what little breath she had left, "It's the architect." Mara's heart stuttered. "The what?" "The first, the mold, the one they all reflect." Calder swallowed hard. "Reflect? Lyra, what does that mean?" But Lyra's eyes dimmed again. She slumped forward, barely conscious. The architect turned its head toward her. A sound emerged. Not a growl, not a hum, not anything human. A vibration that reached into the marrow. The ground trembled. Behind the gates, the mimic creatures responded in perfect unity. They rose to their feet, their mirrored eyes glowing brighter. One by one, they stepped forward and gathered around the ribcage, forming a circle as precise as a machine. Calder raised his weapon again. "This is a ritual. They're preparing something." Mara finally yanked her wrist free as the tendril loosened unexpectedly, almost intentionally. She stumbled backward into Calder, gasping. He steadied her. "You all right?" "No," she said, "but Lyra's worse." Rourke shouted from behind a marble angel. "What do we do about that thing? Sheriff, it's growing." Because it was. As the creatures gathered, the architect's body elongated, stretching upward like a tower waking from a centuries-long kneel. The plates along its torso shifted, revealing a second layer of latticework resembling ribs within ribs, frameworks within frameworks. Calder muttered, "My God, that thing's not a creature, it's a structure." Mara's throat tightened. A structure designed to direct them. "To do what?" he asked. Before she could answer, Lyra forced out, "To open the others." The cemetery air constricted. Mara crouched beside Lyra, gripping her shoulders. "What others?" Lyra's next words came out cracked and fragile. "Under every town, under every forest, under every coastline. They place these seeds everywhere. They've been waiting for a signal." Calder's face went cold. "Then what's this?" Lyra lifted a trembling hand toward the architect. "This is the signal." The architect shifted again. Its faceless head split along 3 clean lines, opening like petals. Inside was not a mouth, not a brain, not anything organic. It was a hollow cavity filled with pulsing, spiraling light. Patterns danced inside it, identical to the ones carved in the field outside town. Rourke fell to his knees, shaking. "Sheriff, I think it's showing us something." But the patterns weren't random. Mara recognized them instantly. They were coordinates. But not for Earth. Coordinates pointing to Earth. Mara whispered, "These aren't instructions, they're a beacon." The architect raised its elongated arms. The creatures circled tighter, their bodies trembling like receivers. The rib cage around the fissure vibrated so intensely it hummed. Calder braced for impact. "What's it doing?" Lyra's eyes snapped open with sudden clarity. Her voice tore from her throat. "It's calling them." The sky above the cemetery rippled, the clouds bending inward, the stars blurring, a pressure building, like the heavens were about to burst open. Mara's blood froze, not because of the sight, but because of the sound. A low, distant hum, far off, yet vast. A sound from something approaching Earth. Not here yet, but on its way. Calder stepped backward, voice cracking. "Dear God, how many are coming?" Lyra whispered. "All of them." The sky looked wrong. Not storm wrong, not night wrong. Wrong in the way a mirror looks when something stands behind you that shouldn't be there. The stars flickered, not like distant suns, but like lights being rearranged, dragged, shifted. Rourke clung to the crypt wall, voice quivering. "Sheriff, are the stars moving?" Calder didn't answer, because he saw it too. The constellations had slipped out of place by a degree so small it should be imperceptible. Yet every instinct screamed that something enormous was pushing at the fabric above them. Mara stood in front of Lyra, shielding her from the vibrating air pouring off the architect. She kept her voice steady despite her heart slamming like a fist in her chest. "Lyra, look at me. How do we stop whatever's coming?" Lyra shook her head, barely conscious. "You don't stop it. You survive it or you serve it." The architect's ribbed chest expanded, plates shifting like an aeon-old lock opening for the first time. A spiraling column of light erupted upward, piercing the night sky with silent force. And the sky answered. Clouds spun inward around the beam, like they'd been waiting for it. The mimic creatures knelt again. Heads bowed, hands pressed to the earth. The grass around them blackened, then revived, then blackened again as if the ground couldn't decide what season it belonged to anymore. Calder shouted to his officers, "Fall back to the vehicles now, move." But no one moved, because they couldn't. Every officer stood frozen, not paralyzed, but captivated by something their minds weren't built to refuse. A pressure settled over their skulls. A thought that wasn't theirs. A whisper. "Witness." Mara felt it too, a vibration behind her eyes, cold as deep water. She forced herself to speak, through clenched teeth. "Calder, don't listen." But even saying it felt like pushing words through concrete. The architect slowly lowered its arms. The ground trembled. And then the stars shifted again. Except this time they didn't shift. They winked out. One by one, as if something massive drifted between Earth and the cosmos, swallowing starlight in a curtain of shadow. Rourke's knees buckled. What's blocking them? Clouds? No, not clouds, not atmosphere. Something far too large for sky or horizon to contain. Mara whispered, "That's a fleet." Calder stared upward, horrified. "A fleet of what?" Before her mind could answer, her gaze fell back to Lyra. The girl was shivering, sweat streaking through the pale glow under her skin. "Lyra, tell me what's coming. Please." Lyra's lips parted. Her voice rasped out like a dying ember. They are returning to what they left behind. What does that mean? Calder demanded. Lyra's eyes flicked toward Mara. Then, to their surprise, she smiled. Not with warmth, with knowledge older than anything above their heads. Mara knows. Mara froze. A cold shock shuddered through her gut. Her pulse stuttered. Her vision blurred just for a moment. Why would I know? She whispered. Lyra coughed, blood glowing faintly gold as it dripped onto her arm. Because you've been hearing them too. Mara's breath caught. She didn't speak. Not yet. But Calder heard the silence behind her silence. Mara, he whispered. What did she mean? Mara tried to answer, but the air cracked. A thin fissure of glowing light streaked across the heavens like a wound opening in the sky. The beam from the architect synced with it perfectly, like the two had been designed for each other. The fissure widened. Wind howled through the cemetery, bending trees in half. Headstones toppled. Crypt doors slammed open. The mimic creatures pressed themselves flat to the earth. The architect raised its faceless head again, and from the fissure in the sky, a sound poured through. Not a roar. The beam felt nothing like light. It felt like intent. Calder's body didn't fall or float. It translated, as if the universe had pressed a button, and he was no longer made of atoms but instructions. The world reassembled around him with the reluctant slowness of a dream waking up. First came sound, a hum low, layered, older than language. Then came smell, metal, cold, sterile, like a cathedral built by machines instead of men. Then came sight. Calder stood on a platform suspended above nothing. Literally nothing. A void stretched below him, shape-shifting like black smoke, trapped inside a glass sphere. Filaments of neon blue pulsed through it, forming brief symbols before dissolving again. A walkway appeared beneath his boots as if deciding he was worth not dropping. Calder steadied himself, breath shallow. Where the hell? But the vessel answered before he could finish. Its walls shifted. Metal peeled back. Corridors unfurled like mechanical vines. The ship was refocusing its architecture around him. Rourke had been right. Spaceships didn't do that. Alive things did. Calder took one cautious step onto the walkway. It hummed soft, curious, almost like the vessel was smelling him. He swallowed hard. Mara? The name echoed through the chamber, swallowed by distant machinery. A voice answered, not hers, not human. Lyra's, but broken, distorted through speakers, embedded in the air itself. Calder knocks. You have entered a forbidden chamber. He spun instinctively, hand reaching for a gun he no longer had. The walls shifted again, forming abstract patterns. You are flesh outside of designation, Lyra continued. You will not be recognized by the ship. You should not be here. Calder gritted his teeth. Where is she? Silence. Then a low pulse rolled through the vessel like a heartbeat. Calder clenched his fists. She was taken. She is mine to get back. The walkway beneath him rippled. A series of geometric light panels activated, stretching ahead in a spiral. A path. Finally. Calder stepped toward it. Lyra's voice returned, but quieter, almost wary. She is being evaluated. For what? For compatibility. A pulse vibrated through the walls. For awakening. Calder's stomach sank. He forced himself to walk, fast and steady, boots clanging against metallic panels. And what does that mean? It means she is being asked to choose. Calder froze mid-step. Choose what? Another heartbeat rolled through the vessel. Lyra's tone dipped into something that almost sounded like fear. Whether she remains Mara, or becomes what she was made to be. Calder stepped closer to a wall, pressing his palm against it. It was warm. The ship was warm. Lyra, tell me what they're doing to her. Processing. The ship's lights flickered as if responding to Lyra's thoughts. Interfaces are being applied, memories untangled, signals restored. Calder's pulse hammered. Mara's memories aren't tangled. Yes, they are, Lyra whispered. They were woven over the architecture of her true design. Calder shook his head. No, she lived a life. She had a mother, a father, a childhood. All fabricated to stabilize her, placed like scaffolding around a structure meant to hold something older. Calder's stomach tightened. He wanted to scream. Wanted to tear the walls off the vessel with his bare hands. But he kept walking. He forced each breath through his teeth. I don't care what she was made for. She is coming home with me. The walkway formed a doorway. A circular chamber opened on the other side, dim but humming with electricity. The air thickened. Calder stepped inside and stopped dead. The chamber held a sphere floating in midair, rotating slowly. A liquid light lattice glowed inside it, like a brain made of glass and lightning. Shapes flickered within. Images. Memories. Mara's memories. He saw her laughing on a beach, saw her writing a report at her desk, saw her lifting crime scene tape, saw her sitting in her car at midnight, crying after a case went cold. Calder whispered her name. His breath fogged the air. A strand of glowing script wrapped around the sphere, tightening like a snake. What is this? He murmured. Lyra's voice answered from everywhere and nowhere. The Chamber of Reclamation. Calder swallowed. And the memories are being tested one by one for durability. What does that mean? It means if they do not align with her original design, they will be erased. Calder's blood went cold. He stepped closer to the sphere. No, you do not touch her memories. You do not change her. The sphere pulsed, reacting to his voice. A ripple of light flowed across its surface. Then the images inside shifted. Mara appeared inside it, not a vision, not an echo. Her silhouette, curled, trembling, suspended in the center of the lattice like an embryo inside a womb made of lightning. Calder froze. Mara! Her face turned, or tried to. Her lips moved, but the ship swallowed the sound. Calder slammed his fists against the sphere. Nothing cracked, nothing dented, nothing even vibrated. Mara, I'm here. I'm right here. She reached for him. Her hand passed against the inner surface, distorted by energy. Calder pressed his palm to the same spot. A shock ran up his arm. He didn't care. Her eyes widened. Recognition sparked. Fear followed. She mouthed something. 3 silent words. Calder's heart stopped as he read them through the shimmering membrane. Don't let them. The sphere dimmed. Her image blurred, being pulled deeper into the interface. No! Calder roared. Stop! Stop the process! Lyra's voice grew sharp. You are interfering with awakening. I don't care. Shut it down. It cannot be stopped. Calder pressed his forehead to the sphere. Mara, stay with me. Stay yourself. Her image flickered, then vanished. The lattice glowed red. A new voice filled the chamber. Not Lyra, not an architect. Something older, heavier, collective. Prototype Unit 01, awakening sequence initiated. Calder staggered back, breath shattered. No, damn it. The chamber lights flared. The vessel pulsed. The sphere expanded, and Mara's scream tore through the ship. A sound that wasn't entirely human anymore, a sound caught between two worlds. A sound that marked the moment the architect's greatest creation began to remember what she was built for, whether she wanted to or not. The scream ricocheted through the chamber, not as a single note, but as two voices pried apart inside the same throat. One voice was Mara's, raw, terrified, fighting. The human voice Calder knew so well. The other was deeper, resonant, mechanical, each sound wave etched with a geometry that didn't belong to biology. Calder felt the noise in his bones before he heard it with his ears. The floor hummed. The walls throbbed. The air thickened as if the ship itself was reacting to her cry. "Mara!" Calder hammered both fists against the sphere. "Hold on!" The chamber's lights strobed in patterns that felt like commands. He didn't understand the language, but his instincts whispered, "She isn't just screaming. She's responding." Symbols spiraled around the sphere, like a storm of runes pulled into orbit. Mara's silhouette flickered at the center, twisting as though being pulled in two directions. Calder turned toward the ceiling. "Lyra, help her. Shut this down." Lyra's voice cracked through the speakers, fraying at the edges. "I cannot. The vessel has taken full control of the awakening chamber. It is older than the architect on the ground. It follows protocols of the first design." Calder snarled. "Then override the protocols." A long, pained pause. "I do not have the authority you imagine I have." Calder cursed under his breath and struck the sphere again, pain radiating up his arms. Inside the sphere, Mara convulsed, not physically but mentally. Her memories drifted around her like shards. Her first day at the academy, her mother braiding her hair, the night her partner died, the way the ocean smelled in winter, her first apartment, that stray dog she fed behind a gas station, and then images Calder didn't recognize. A dark room, metal cradles, hands that weren't hands, building her cell by cell. Voices older than her species, whispering instructions into her forming mind. Calder's breath hitched. Those weren't memories. They were installations. Mara jerked, clutching her head. The sphere crackled white-hot. "Mara!" Calder shouted. "Listen to me. Those memories aren't yours." Her eyes snapped open inside the sphere, one pupil brown, one glowing gold. He saw the chamber lay in a strange twilight, half lit, half dead, trembling like something enormous had swallowed a scream. Calder didn't stand right away. He stayed on the floor beside Mara, one hand hovering near her cheek, as though she might evaporate if he blinked wrong. She blinked back at him, slow and shaky. Confusion clung to her like frost. "Calder," her voice trembled. "Why is everything so loud?" He exhaled relief, bending his shoulders. "It's the ship. It's hurting." "Hurting?" she echoed softly. As if responding, the vessel shuddered. Panels flickered. Cables overhead twitched like nerves misfiring. Footsteps crackled through the intercom. Lyra's simulation pacing in a panic she tried and failed to hide. "Calder, we have a problem." He clenched his jaw. "Of course we do," he muttered. Mara tried sitting up. Her body wavered like a hologram. She pressed her hands to the ground, breath unsteady. "Everything feels new," she whispered. "And broken?" Calder steadied her with one arm, the other clenching with rage he didn't have time to unpack. "You're here," he said. "That's all that matters." But deep in the vessel's ribcage, something disagreed. A low hum swelled into a rising moan. Metal stressed, thoughts twisting, old laws waking like serpents uncoiling. The ship spoke, not in that calm, ancient whisper, not in the sterile tone from before. This voice was strained, flickering at the edges. Reinitialization failure is unacceptable. Sequence must be completed. Prototype must be restored. Mara flinched. No, Calder snapped at the ceiling. It's over. She's done with your programming. Silence. Then, incorrect. The floor trembled under their feet. Panels retracted, columns descended. Cables writhed like veins exposed during surgery. Mara grabbed Calder's arm, eyes wide. The brown in them was warm, human, terrified. What's happening? Lyra's voice finally broke through. Calder, Mara, the vessel is activating a secondary protocol, one I have never seen. Calder lifted Mara gently, supporting her weight. She felt light or fragile in a way she never had before. Define secondary protocol, he demanded. Lyra hesitated, an artificial breath caught in a simulated throat. It's called continuity enforcement. Calder felt heat drain out of his chest. What does that mean? It means the vessel does not accept her current identity. It will attempt corrective action. Mara's fingers dug into his sleeve. Corrective how? Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. By reconstructing the prototype from the last stable design. Mara's breathing stuttered. That's not me. Calder pulled her closer. No, and I won't let them touch you again. The lights flared blood red. A circle formed around them on the floor, a glowing lattice of symbols, a targeting pattern. The ship declared, identity restoration commencing. Calder moved instantly. He swept Mara into his arms and sprinted out of the circle just as a column of blue fire roared down where she had been. The blast scorched the floor. Mara let out a sharp cry, part shock, part memory of pain, part something else entirely. Calder set her behind him and drew himself up like a shield. Lyra, direct me to an exit. Her voice flickered with static. I don't know if there is one. The vessel is sealing the chamber. The walls shifted, plates sliding like tectonic plates closing a wound. Calder snarled. Mara, stay behind me, stay low. She tried to answer, but her voice came out warped, something inside her still destabilizing, flickering between what she was and what the ship tried to force back into shape. I feel them, she whispered. They're pushing on my mind, trying to pull me into a pattern. Her hands flew to her temples. Stop, get out. Calder grabbed her shoulders. Mara, hey, look at me. Her breathing hitched, then steadied just enough for her to focus. You're not alone in your head anymore. You're not surrounded by them. You're surrounded by me. Her eyes glowed just faintly, gold simmering beneath brown like a star remembering its birth. She swallowed hard. I'm scared. Calder nodded. So am I, but we're getting out. Together, I promise. The promise seemed to steady her more than the air or the floor or the crumbling logic of the vessel. Then the ship's voice boomed again, echoing like a judge reading a sentence. Prototype non-compliant. Identity restoration will proceed by force. The walls peeled back. Something unfolded from them. Not a machine, not a drone, a shape. Humanoid. Tall, smooth-faced, blank, featureless. A template the body Mara was meant to inhabit. Her original design. It stepped forward with mechanical grace. Mara choked on a strangled gasp. That's me. No? Calder growled. That's what they wanted you to be. The template cocked its head, voice empty. Return to sequence. Calder stepped between it and Mara, over my dead body. The template moved in a blur, fast, too fast. Calder barely dodged the first strike, its arm slicing through the air where his throat had been. He ducked, pivoted, and drove his elbow into its side. It didn't flinch. It didn't feel. The template turned its faceless head toward him. Obstacle identified, removing. Calder grabbed a fallen metal panel and swung it with every ounce of fear-fed strength he had. It cracked against the template's head. No reaction. The template lunged. Mara cried out, "Calder!" But Calder was already moving, already catching its wrist, already twisting with the leverage of someone with nothing left to lose. Metal groaned. The template pushed back Calder's knees, nearly buckled. This thing was stronger than him, faster than him, built to be everything Mara was meant to become. He gritted his teeth, holding the machine at bay inch by inch. "Mara, run!" "No!" she screamed. Her voice echoed, twisted. Something inside it awakened a frequency, a tone, something that wasn't human yet, wasn't architect, a third thing, her thing. The air rippled around her. The template froze mid-motion. Calder blinked. "Mara?" She stood trembling, one palm raised, eyes burning gold and brown like dawn and dusk, waging a war inside her skull. "I said," her voice deepened, resonated, vibrated the air. "Stop!" The template's limbs locked in place like a puppet with its strings cut. The entire chamber howled in protest. The vessel's voice glitched. "Unauthorized override, impossible prototype, cannot identity incompatible." Mara stepped forward, barely standing, barely herself, barely stable, but utterly resolute. Her voice fell into a whisper that shook the walls. "I am not your design." The template shattered, not cracked, not dented, shattered, disintegrating into splinters of light that dissolved before they hit the floor. Calder stared, breath gone. Mara wavered, swaying. He caught her before she collapsed. "Mara, holy are you?" She trembled in his arms. "I don't know what I am," she whispered, voice frayed, "but I know what I'm not." Behind them, the ship let out a sound like a cathedral collapsing. It whispered, broken. Identity, irretrievable, control, lost. Calder held her tighter. Good. The ship flickered. Lights faded, and somewhere deep in the vessel's spine, something else woke up. Something neither architect nor human ever intended. Silence rolled through the chamber. But it wasn't peaceful. It was the silence after an explosion, the kind that leaves dust hanging, ears ringing, and the air tasting like electricity and dread. Calder held Mara tightly. Her pulse raced beneath her skin. Her body shook in sharp, involuntary tremors. He brushed a hand along her back. You're okay. I've got you." But the ship had other opinions. The walls vibrated lightly at first, then harder, like a heartbeat searching for rhythm. Lyra's voice cut through, cracked and thin. "Calder, something just changed." He didn't look away from Mara. Define something. "The vessel's core just reopened." His stomach dropped. "Why would it do that?" "I don't know," Lyra whispered, fearful in a way no simulation should be able to feel. Unless the architects left a final failsafe, a last identity defense. Mara shivered violently. Calder cupped her face, leaning close. "Mara, talk to me. What's happening?" Her eyes fluttered open, brown, but flickering with faint threads of gold. "I feel..." She paused, swallowed hard. Another presence, far away, waking up, watching. Calder stiffened. The architects? She shook her head. No, worse, older. The floor vibrated again. The walls rotated like gears grinding awake after centuries of stillness. Lyra's voice trembled. I'm detecting a communication attempt, but not outward, inward. Calder's grip tightened around Mara. Inward to what? To the vessel's heart, she whispered, to whatever it was built around. The lights cut out completely. Darkness swallowed everything. Calder didn't move. He waited, listened. Mara pressed her forehead to his chest, breath trembling. Then a single white light ignited far above, illuminating a circular shaft descending into blackness. From the darkness, a sound emerged. Tap, then another. Tap, slow, measured, deliberate. Footsteps. Except feet hadn't walked this vessel in 1,000 years. Calder positioned himself between Mara and the source, muscles coiled. Lyra, he whispered, what's coming? Her answer was a breath of horror. There's nothing on the sensors. Tap, closer now. Mara lifted her head, eyes wide with recognition she didn't understand. I know that sound, she whispered. I don't know how, but I know it. The light shifted, forming a silhouette descending the shaft. Tall, human-shaped, but wrong in ways Calder couldn't describe, angles too precise, movements too smooth. The footsteps stopped at the edge of the chamber. Calder felt Mara's hand slide into his. He squeezed back. The figure stepped into the glow, not a machine, not a hologram, a person, or something wearing the origin core split open. Not with fire, not with noise. With silence so deep, it felt like the universe inhaling in fear. Golden fractures spread across its surface, branching like veins of a dying star. The light inside condensed into a single sphere so dense, it bent the chamber around it. Metal groaned. Gravity twisted. Even the architect staggered under the force. Calder shielded Mara instinctively. Stay behind me. She stepped beside him anyway. No more hiding. A pulse tore through the vessel, rattling every plate, every rivet, every breath. The architect skidded backward. This is impossible. The origin cannot destabilize unless someone remembers too much, Mara said. Her voice glittered with defiance. The core shuddered again, its containment rings snapping apart like flimsy paper. Calder tightened his grip on her hand. I'm guessing this wasn't your plan. Not exactly, she said, trying for humor but sounding like a storm learning to speak. The architect raised its arms toward the core, desperate. Stabilize, stabilize. Respond to Master Directive Theta. Nothing. The core ignored it entirely. Instead, it turned toward Mara. Light rippled outward, bending space to face her like a living eye forced awake. The architect froze. No, not her. She's not compatible. Mara's expression hardened. Funny, that's exactly what you said the day you erased me. A deep hum rolled through the chamber, a hum that felt like a question, a hum that knew her. The golden light formed a gentle arc toward her chest, brushing her with the softness of a forgotten lullaby. Calder whispered, Mara, it's recognizing you. It's reclaiming me, she whispered, but this time I'm not letting it choose who I become. The architect lunged. No, if the origin completes the connection, it will rewrite your neural lattice. You will be absorbed, overridden, annihilated. Calder stepped in front of Mara. Touch her and I take you apart piece by piece. The architect halted. Its geometric eyes flickered like failing stars. This is bigger than love or defiance. If she fuses with the core, the entire vessel will collapse into a singularity. Mara shook her head. No, that only happens if I fight it. Calder turned to her, stunned. You're going to talk to it like it's a person? It isn't a person, she said gently. It's a memory, and memories don't want destruction. They want continuity. She stepped forward. The golden tendrils wrapped around her wrists like warm ribbons. Her hair lifted in weightless waves. Light spiraled up her spine. Calder reached for her. Mara, wait. She looked back, eyes illuminated from within. Trust me. The core brightened violently, engulfing her. Her silhouette dissolved into radiance. Calder shouted her name, but the sound broke into dust before it reached her. The architect covered its face, bracing for impact. The core flashed. A detonation, a collapse, a rebirth. Then, silence. Light drifted down like golden snow. Calder stood frozen, heart hammering. When the glow faded, a figure stood at the center of the broken containment rings. Mara, but different, brighter, older and younger at once. Her presence felt like a restored cathedral humming with life. Calder stepped toward her cautiously. Mara? She opened her eyes. They no longer glowed. They shimmered like galaxies learning tenderness. Her voice came out steady. I talked to it. Calder blinked. You did what? It showed me every erased life, every broken identity, every face the architects discarded. Her throat tightened, and it asked me a question. Calder moved closer. What did it ask? She looked up at him, eyes clear. What do you want to become? Calder breathed out slowly. And what did you tell it? She smiled, faint and tired. Myself. A tremor rippled across the chamber, but this one wasn't violent. It wasn't destructive. It was awakening. The architect stumbled forward. This is impossible. You retained your individuality while interfacing with the origin. Mara tilted her head. You designed us to obey, not to choose. She stepped past Calder and stopped within arm's reach of the architect. You forgot something important. Her voice lowered to a whisper. People aren't templates. The architect's voice faltered. You merged with the origin. You hold the root permissions now. Calder's eyes widened. Mara, you control the entire vessel. Her breath caught. I think I do. A new sound filled the chamber, a deep, metallic heartbeat shared by a ship waking from centuries of sleep. Calder stepped beside her. What do you want to do? Mara looked at him. At the architect, at the walls filled with stolen lives, then up at the broken core that now pulsed in rhythm with her own heartbeat. Her expression sharpened into resolve. I want to free them. The chamber lights flickered. The vessel answered her. And somewhere deep in the ship, thousands of dormant pods began to hum like a choir on the edge of resurrection. The humming beneath the ship thickened into a physical force, a vibration that settled into Calder's bones and turned the air metallic. The vessel was no longer breathing like a wounded machine. It was breathing like something alive. Mara stepped forward, her pulse syncing with the ship's rhythmic thrum. Lights along the corridor ignited in a synchronized wave, guiding her path. She didn't order it. She only thought toward it, and the vessel obliged, with the obedience of a long-lost guardian. Calder kept pace beside her. The architect hesitated, then followed behind them with reluctant, trembling calculation. You do not understand what you have unlocked, it warned. The pods cannot simply be opened. Their identities were removed for a reason. Mara didn't slow. They were removed because you didn't want to hear their voices. The neural lattice inside each pod is blank, the architect insisted. There is nothing to restore. Mara pressed her palm to the next sealed door. The metal softened under her touch like warm clay. Then it's a good thing I'm not restoring anything. Her voice unfolded with calm certainty. I'm giving them back what you stole? The door peeled open and the sound hit them, a low, trembling murmur, like thousands of throats whispering just below consciousness. Calder's jaw tightened. That's not mechanical. No, Mara said softly. They're dreaming. The awakening hall stretched into impossible distance, lit by soft gold. Cylinders lined the walls in vertical rows, each holding a human body suspended in pale fluid. Young, old, scarred, serene. Faces that had never been given homes, never granted names. Calder walked between them with reverent caution. How many are there? 7,412, the architect answered. Mara touched one of the pods. The dream murmur inside it swelled at her contact, like a heartbeat trying to rise. Calder turned to her. You sure you can control this? I don't want control, she said. The pod flickered. Lights twitched along its edges. The nameplate beneath it glowed, then rearranged itself into blank strands of data waiting to become something more. I want them to wake as themselves. The architect's tone sharpened. They have no selves. They were made from fragments. For a long moment, Calder said nothing. Not because he was speechless, but because something inside him had gone very, very still. A silence that wasn't shock, not fear, not disbelief. Recognition. A memory he hadn't let himself reach for in years, stirred like a sleeping ember under ash. Marin stepped closer, voice trembling. Calder, your father didn't die. He was erased. The vessel's sphere pulsed deep red. We should not continue this line of inquiry. Calder turned slowly toward it. Explain. You are not prepared. Explain, he repeated, voice low and sharp. The vessel dimmed, almost recoiling. Marin looked between them, confusion hardening into dread. Why don't you want him to know? The sphere shivered. Some memories are not meant to resurface. Calder stepped forward, jaw tight. He was my father. You will tell me what happened to him. The vessel's voice glitched. Not a malfunction, a hesitation, a fear. Your father, Aiden Rook, was one of the first to expose the existence of the Nullborn. He discovered its pattern long before we did. The chamber tightened around them, lights dimming, metal creaking as if listening. Marin's breath caught. So he knew? He knew more than anyone. He built theories the world ignored. He tracked disappearances no one cared about. He chased patterns no one saw. Calder closed his eyes, memories flickering like old film. His father's late nights, his frantic drawings, maps, notes, equations, circles of faces pinned to walls. Then the silence that followed. The absence. The funeral with an empty casket. The whisper. He walked out. He abandoned his family. He broke. Calder opened his eyes. He didn't break. No. The sphere glowed softly. He was taken. Marin stepped forward. Taken by the Nullborn? A pause. Not initially. Calder's brow furrowed. What does that mean? The sphere dimmed. Your father was not erased by the Nullborn. He became the Nullborn. The room felt like it dropped 5 stories. Marin gasped. Calder's heart slammed once, hard, like a door kicked open inside him. Explain. The vessel projected a faint glow, forming the silhouette of a man. Blurred, only partially remembered. his posture bent from years of chasing a truth he wasn't built to face. Aiden Rook found the boundary between identity and oblivion. He tried to cross it to understand the nature of forgetting. He believed he could return with answers, Marin whispered. And he didn't. He did not return as a man. The projection warped, the silhouette unraveling into white static. He reached the threshold. He let himself be forgotten. He surrendered his name to study the void where memory ends. Calder felt something break open in his chest. He chose this. He chose knowledge beyond human capacity, but the threshold took more than his name. The sphere flickered, voice dimming. It took his shape, his identity, his humanity. It hollowed him until he became the absence he studied. Marin whispered, horrified. The Nullborn. The first one. Born from the man who sought to understand forgetting, and instead became the heart of it. Calder stood very still. Too still. Marin reached for him. Calder, please say something. He didn't. His voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. He knew. All this time, he knew what was coming. The vessel trembled. Yes, and he left a message for you. Silence dropped like a curtain. Calder's head snapped up. What message? The sphere hesitated. It is stored in the archive, a final imprint made hours before he crossed the threshold. Play it. Another hesitation. Calder Rook, your father left you a truth he believed you might one day need. But hearing it will bend your path. There is no return from it. Calder's jaw clenched. Play it. The vessel dimmed. Then the chamber lights shifted to a soft amber glow. A figure materialized in the air. A man with tired eyes. Aiden Rook, Calder's father. Not erased, not distorted. Him. A man on the edge of a decision that would consume him. He looked into the recorder with a haunted steadiness and spoke one sentence first. Calder, if you're seeing this, it means you're closer to the threshold than I ever wanted you to be. Marin covered her mouth. Calder couldn't breathe. His father continued, and I need you to hear what comes next without fear. He leaned slightly forward. The Nullborn didn't choose me, I chose it. Calder's stomach twisted. Aiden's voice dropped. Because something worse than forgetting is coming, and I need you to be the one who remembers. The recording glitched. Aiden's final words cut through the chamber like a blade. Calder, you are not here by accident. You were meant to finish what I started. The projection vanished. The chamber dimmed to silence. Marin stared at Calder in horror, awe, and heartbreak all at once. The vessel whispered. Calder didn't move. Not when the projection dissolved into amber dust. Not when the vessel dimmed to a warning shade. Not even when Marin, trembling, laid a careful hand against his arm. He stood frozen, anchored to a truth he had spent his whole life unknowingly orbiting. His father had vanished twice, once from the world, and once from himself. Marin swallowed hard. Calder, talk to me. He finally turned his head, slowly. He knew, Calder said. He knew he wouldn't come back. He knew he would become that thing, and he still crossed. Marin stepped in front of him, searching his expression. You think he abandoned you? Calder didn't answer. The silence was the answer. The vessel vibrated with a low, steady hum, as if gathering its nerve. Aiden Rook crossed the threshold because he believed it was the only way to stop the cascade. Marin frowned. Cascade? The sphere pulsed. A collapse. A a chain of erasure spreading like cracks across memory. Once the nullborn multiplied, humanity would unravel. Calder blinked sharply. Multiply? You told us it was one entity, one presence. A longer pause than before, almost ashamed. It was one until your father's sacrifice fractured it. Marin's voice dropped to a whisper. He made more of them? Not intentionally, his fragmentation created echoes, ashes of identity that drifted into unguarded minds. Every forgotten face, every vanished name